Hello, ma'am. First of all, I would like to thank you for joining us for this interview and sharing your thoughts with us about various aspects related to mental health. So, ma'am, to start with the interview, can you please introduce yourself to our readers?
Hi, Simran, and thank you for inviting me for the interview. Talking about myself, I have pursued my post graduation in clinical psychology from Mumbai University. I have also done my diploma in counseling psychology from St. Xavier's Institute of Counseling Psychology, Mumbai. I am also a registered career mentor under BCPA, that is the Bharatiya Counseling Psychology Association. I have also worked at KEM Hospital, Mumbai as an HIV counselor. Thereafter, I worked as a school counselor in a couple of schools in Mumbai. And then here in Lucknow, I am also again working as a school counselor. I am committed to work for the mental health of children. And my aim, I'm striving to create this awareness about, replacing the traditional parenting, disciplined parenting, to a more conscious and a holistic one.
Okay, ma'am. So, ma'am, my next question would be that what inspired you to become a counseling psychologist?
Well, when I didn't know anything about psychology when I opted for the subject in class 11. I was a very weak student in my school days and always promoted with a grace mark. Then, I overcame my inferiorities by, excelling in other things. Like, I wanted to take up challenging tasks. So I decided to take up psychology, though I didn't even know what was it all about. But gradually, when my curiosity increased in the subject, and when I completed my PG, I realized that mental health is a real issue. It's a real problem, and it's a grave concern, and it is really badly affecting people, and they don't know what to do about it and where to go. So that began with my journey as a counseling psychologist.
Yes, ma'am, right. So, ma'am, my next question would be that do you think that continuous success and people's inability to deal with their failure let them think that the only option available with them is to go for suicide?
Continuous success brings a repetition, a lifestyle, a standard, a status, a social circle. We are so inclined towards, achievement, and we are so achievement oriented. And, we've been always looking for excellence in academics and profession, that we fail to realize that there are certain skills that are required to help us to cope up with, failure, and to accept failure and bear with it. Is, that we, along with, we need to have these skills. Along with these, apart from being excellent in academics and profession, these skills are very important that will help us to cope up with failure.
So, ma'am, moving forward, my next question is that what do you think is the role of parents' upbringing in mental health?
Parents' role is very important in, in keeping the mental health intact of children, and even, as they grow up into being adults. I believe that mental health issues would decline to a great extent if we nurture and raise our children in a more communicative, compassionate, and conscious ways. We, as parents, we want our children to be, the perfect ones, the best, and the superstars. So we try, we try to push them and pressurize them to do and to follow interests that we want them to do. And then we change their contours to, fit them into something what we want them to fit in. But not knowing, not realizing that it is, what damage are we causing to the child. And this idea of perfect kids and superstars and, the best kid, it's not a reality. Children are like sponges. They absorb every bit of expression, words, and behaviors of their parents. And we then force them to behave well. That is absolutely not possible. Until the child feels better, he cannot behave better. And the good mental health allows the children and the young adults to develop resilience and to cope up with the blows in life. And eventually they turn out to become mentally healthy adults. So the role of parents is very important during childhood.
Okay, so my next question would be that how does one's social environment and their eating habits affect their mental health?
Our lifestyle, our gender, culture, status, all of these reflects our social environment. Social comes from the word society, and society is a collection of groups and collection of people. And these people are coming from different families with a set of beliefs and values. We have divided our, society as the lower class, middle class, and the upper class. And each of them have their own societies. What suits, things that are acceptable in one society may not be acceptable in the other society. And through our work and the kind of work we do and our interests, we can change a social environment. And we are pressured to fit into this society because of this log kya kahenge factor, which induces a lot of stress and anxiety in us. Talking about the eating habits, yes, eating habits, there is a lot of studies that have revealed that eating habits and the diet has an impact on our mental health. So as the saying goes, that we are what we eat. We are so much influenced by the Western culture's concept of fast food and junk food and processed food. These foods are rich in carbohydrates and sugar, which increases the risk of depression and anxiety because they release certain chemicals in the brain. And depression and anxiety is an imbalance of these chemicals. So yes, certainly the chemical imbalances can be influenced by the diet.
So ma'am, moving forward, my next question would be that what do you think are the ways that one can deal with the problems that affect their mental health?
Everyone wants a smooth life. We want a happy life, a hassle-free life. But this is not a reality. Okay? Every day we make decisions about mundane things or something more meaningful. Okay. Before we take decisions, before we make a plan of action for these decisions about what we need to do, we want to be certain whether my decision is going to be right or best or good. So we want this certainty in life, which gives us a feeling of security. And also it, makes us feel in control of the things in our life. No matter however we run behind or strive towards, having certainty in our life, uncertainty is woven in the fabric of nature. We cannot escape uncertainty, right? So we have, people who are able to tolerate uncertainties are, live a better life. The other thing is that frustration tolerance.
Yes.
We get frustrated when we're not able to achieve something, or when our needs are not being met. Needs such as emotional, physical, or materialistic needs. We get frustrated, and when we get frustrated, there are certain thoughts that come to our mind, like I did not get this, I did not achieve this, I want to have this, I did not have this. So at this point of time, in this situation, gratitude plays a very important role in bringing peace within yourself.
So moving forward, my next question is that there is a saying that meditation, yoga, physical activities, extracurricular activities help improve one's mental health. So ma'am, what is your take on this statement?
The purpose of yoga is to attain fitness, flexibility, to improve your breath, to relax your mind. So yoga is it is very helpful, yoga and meditation, to reduce your anxiety and stress. It also brings about self-awareness and self-regulation. So with this, relaxed state of mind, the calm state of mind, we can think better and act better.
So ma'am, my next question would be that there are people who are not able to deal with their circumstances, and they think that attempting suicide is the only option left with them. So ma'am, how can this be controlled on their part?
Everyone has a different capacity to bear with the stress, and some may have more, some may have less. The fact is that everyone has some capacity to bear with stress. But along with this capacity, what is important is our response and reaction to stress. How are we responding and reacting to stress? Okay, that will either uproot us or keep us upright. Now, the one who, people who have recurrent thoughts of suicide, or have these thoughts of ending their life, are always feeling hopeless, helpless, lonely, and worthless. Here, it is very important for such people to have a very good support system. This is very important, to fall back on something. The next point is that, if someone comes to you, expressing their feelings about, ending one's life or talking about death, don't discount their feelings, because they perceive their feelings to be very serious. It may not be for you, but it is definitely for them. Listen without judging, without minimizing their problems, or without shaming, and identify the warning signals, that the signs, the warning signs of a suicidal person. There are certain signs that you have to check out for, like his eating and sleep. There will be a change in the eating and sleeping pattern. There'll be persistent mood swings. He may lose interest in things that he used to once enjoy. There will be social withdrawal from family, friends, talking about death. Okay, so all these things you need to check out, and lastly, you can you refer them to a professional immediately.
Yes, ma'am. Okay, ma'am. So, ma'am, moving forward, ma'am, the next question is that what is your opinion that what is the most important quality of a counseling psychologist?
To be able to, a good counseling psychologist will be able to connect with his clients and understand what and how the person is going through and what is he feeling. And this is only possible when he himself has done his, self-awareness and introspected into his own values and beliefs, that will help him to empathize, understand, and reflect on his feelings. So it's very important that, you first be self-aware, be aware of yourself, and then, you can connect. It will be, it will be easy to connect with the client.
Yes, ma'am. Okay, ma'am. So next question is that as a counseling psychologist, what have you learned from your various patients you have met?
I have seen that in a pattern in the cases that I have come across, that we are so casual in when we talk to others, that we are not conscious of what words are we using and how are we saying. And this could, really have a damaging effect on the other person. It may, these words can be, even spoil the relationships. We, often we, covered up with hurts and resentments, and we want to pass it on to others. The burden, the garbage that is thrown onto us, we want to throw it back to someone else, and the cycle goes on. The husband is frustrated because of some work pressures. He comes and removes his frustration on his wife. The wife then throws it on to her children, and the child misbehaves in school. So there's this pattern that keeps going on. So we need to realize that if something is not working, we need to take a step back. Create that space. When you take a step back, be aware of yourself, be conscious of yourself. Don't be blindfolded with, about the consequences.
Yes, ma'am.
Be conscious in that space and try to reflect on that what is troubling you and how things are, affecting the other person.
Yes, ma'am. Okay, thank you. So, ma'am, apart from all this, my last question is that what would you like to convey to our readers?
A very important thing that I would like to say to my readers is that don't ignore your mental health. It is as important as the physical health. Don't feel shy to seek a professional help. Mental health is the way we think, feel, and behave. We need to develop skills and certain skills and characteristics to keep our mental health intact. Like, develop a sense of contentment, gratification, resilience, ability to bounce back, ability to laugh and have fun, right? Ability to have meaningful relationships with others, be able to adapt to changes, be flexible with, in learning new skills. And, along with this, of course, yoga, meditation, adequate sleep, and a proper diet will help us to have a good mental health.
Okay, ma'am. Okay, ma'am. Thank you so much for joining us for this interview and sharing your thoughts with us. Thank you, ma'am.
Thank